Buchman with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I'm having fun making some crystal spacers that are going to go in between some of my larger beads here. And I'm going to be making these crystal spacers with Montees and bugles. So we're going to be making these Montee spacers here, which you can make in a variety of different sizes and kind of have a different look to them depending on how big you make the center circumference. But I'm going to be making mine, like I said, to go in between some of the lampwork beads here that I have. So I want them to be a little bit smaller, but not quite as large. If you need the materials to do any of these Montee sliders, you can go to the left-hand side here on the video. We'll do a little drop down as I say the different products that are included in the video that you can click to order from me online. If you don't see those pop-ups, it may be based on the device that you're on. If you're on a mobile or some iPads, you may need to go to the box underneath the video that is labeled description, which says what the video is about. And from there, we'll put in links as well to purchase all the beads that are used here in the video, whether or not you want to get some of the lampwork beads or even some of the cording or the actual Montees as well to do these Montee spacers. So for the actual video, I'm going to be using the Montees, and the rose Montees I'm using are the SS12 size. So they're the SS12, and I'm going to be using Crystal AB. For the size slider that I'm doing, which is about a 10mm slider, it is requiring 5 of my Montees. If you want to do something a little bit bigger, obviously you're going to need a couple more Montees. So I have 2 packs of Montees here, so I can make a couple of them to put in between the lampwork beads. So again, I'm using the Crystal AB color of the Montees to kind of pull in a little brightness and a little bit of a shine, and those are the SS12, which is approximately a 3mm Montee. In addition to my Montees, I have some 3mm check bugles, and these are a 3mm bugle in the matte black AB color. And the bugles, you really don't see that much, you just see a tiny bit, and you don't use that many. So you want to get some that you definitely will use for another project if you're buying bugles for the first time. That's why a black or a matte black AB or something like that is a good color to choose. In between the Montees and the bugles, I have some 15-0 seed beads. The 15-0 seed beads that I'll be using are the Crystal Labrador color, and these are a Miyuki seed bead that is coated in the Czech Republic, which gives it that nice bright silver color. The whole thing will be done with a size 12 needle, and I'll be working with a 12 needle and also with some green wildfire thread in the 0.006 size. Each little spacer is going to require about 16 inches of thread when you're working with it. In addition to those items, I have some leather cording here, and it's 1.5mm Greek leather in the dark brown color. And again, I have my lampwork beads here, which have a nice big hole that will get that leather through it. That way I can space them out with it as well. Lastly, I have sitting here my thread zep, and this is the Thread Zep 2. You can use a Thread Zep Ultra, Thread Zep 2, the actual different thread zaps really aren't going to matter. What's going to matter is just that you have one basically to work with. I use that to get my thread off the spool as well as to burn down the edges as I go through and knot the threads together. I also have a needle nose plier sitting here, and the needle nose pliers I use to pinch down the end of the thread after using the thread burner to make it much easier, especially with that size 12 needle, to thread the needle. You may also want some super new glue as well as a nice workable surface. Something like a bead mat or a bead board or a bead on it board will make it easier for you to pick up your beads and make you actually a more proficient and efficient beader. If you need any of these materials, again, there's the little drop downs or the list below. To get started, I am going to cut about 18 inches of my thread and put it on my size 12 needle. Go ahead and dump out a little pile each of the 15s and the bugle beads to get started on your first spacer. So to get started with the spacers, I have my bugles and my 15-0 seed beads laying out on my mat. Each one of my spacers, if you're doing it the same kind of width as me, which is about a 10 millimeter kind of rounded, the interior hole is going to be about a 5 millimeter. We are working here with 15 bugles per little crystal slider. So to create the Montee slider, we're going to be working with right angle weave. Again, I have about 18 inches of thread on my needle, and I've used a bead as a stop bead. The stop bead is used to keep the other beads on the project and make sure they don't slip off. Eventually this will come off the project. To create the stop bead, we're just taking the thread and needle through the beads 2 times away from that 2 to 3 inch tail at the end. If you're not familiar with right angle weave, you may want to pause the video, watch one of the other right angle weave videos, and then come back to it. Because it is only 5 sets of right angle weave long, you may not actually learn the right angle weave, but you may kind of learn the actual technique here in the video. So it's based on groupings of 4. We're going to be making a box. So I'm going to put 4 bugles, and those are the 3 millimeter bugles, onto my needle, and let those drop down next to my stop bead. From there, to make a box, I'm going to go through that first bugle that's in line, going away from the stop bead and pulling the needle out. When I do that, it's going to make a little box. I'm going to create the box then by sewing through 1 more of my bugle beads. So that way my thread and needle are coming out on the opposite corner of the 15-0 seed bead that's used as the stop bead. This little base is going to be the way that I sit my Montees into the Montee spacer here. To continue on, I'm going to make 4 more boxes. Each box from here on is going to use 3 bugles for the next 3 boxes, because I already have 1 bugle that's already going to be part of my box and adding on to that section. I have my 3 bugles on my needle, and then I'm going to take my needle and thread through the bugle that the thread is coming out of in a circular fashion. So the thread's going around in a circle, and I'm taking that out and bringing that down. It's going to be down towards that first original corner. From there, go up the side bead, and we're going to string back through 2 more, still going around in that circular fashion. The way that my thread and needle are going to come out then is it's going to come out right along the top here of that second little box on the same side as that seed bead. I'm now ready to create the next little box. To do so, 3 more beads go on, and I'm going to sew around in a circle again through that original bugle that is already part of the previous second box that was created. That's going to create the 3rd box. To get to a place that I can add my 4th box, we're going to sew through 2 beads. So we're going to sew through the bugle at the top, and we're going to sew through the bugle on the right hand side. After this, the thread should be coming out towards the bottom of the project on the opposite side of the stop bead. I have 1 more to go where I'm adding 3 bugles. Again, sewing into the top of the bugle that my thread is coming out of and bringing the thread down. To get my thread to the exterior so I can build on, we're going to go through the bugle on the side, as well as through the bugle that is the furthest away from that stop bead portion. At this point, you'll be done your 4 little boxes. Again, we're going to do a total of 5 boxes, and at this point we'll get ready to kind of round out and actually make our slide. To round out and make this slide, we're just going to be adding 2 more bugles and connecting the 2 ends together. So from here, we're ready again to connect those 2 sides together. For this box, our 5th and final box, we're going to be joining the first bugle to the last bugle. To create a box, we're simply going to add 2 more bugles. I pick up 1 bugle And I'm going to let that drop down just so you can see exactly where it's going to sit. And it's going to sit at the top of the box there. I'm going to bring the original little square over and sew down through the left-handmost bugle. You can see now that that brings that little box together. And we're going to add one more bugle. When I add the last bugle, I'm going to sew through the original bugle that my thread was coming out of. So basically we're just joining our sides together and sewing those bugles together. So you're going to end up with a 5-sided there little box. You can see here that little pentagram. And we have those 5 sides. At this point now we get to add in our actual Montees. So the Montees here again are that SS12, which is about a 3mm. And the Montees, if you haven't used them before, the Montees have an X shape to the back of them. So when I flip them over, they have that nice crystal, and on the back of the Montees, they have the X shape. We're going to be stringing them one through one side and one through the other side. To do that, we're going to pick up a 15-0, string through the Montee in one of the holes, it doesn't matter which one at first, and another 15-0. You want to let that drop down right next to your box section. So the thread is coming out this last bugle here, going from the bottom towards the top. I put on the Montee, and I'm going to lay the Montee down on top of the box from one corner to the other corner. I'm going to always be going through the center bugles. The side bugles will sit on the side. So my thread's coming out to kind of the top there, and I'm going to turn my bugles to the side so you can see what we're doing here. So I have that bugle kind of facing left to right, and my thread and needle are coming out the right-hand side. I'm going to go in the left-hand side of the bugle below it and bring my needle out. Before pulling tightly, kind of force your Montee to sit upright. Adding another 15-0, I'm going to go through the cross section of the Montee. So I'm going through that other X portion. Add another 15-0 after coming out that Montee, and sew through that original bugle from the left side and come out the right. So basically you're just doing a big X right along that Montee. You can see it's really flimsy right now. It'll stiffen up when we add some seed beads at the very end. To get to the next box, come down the right-hand side through that right-hand bugle, go through the lateral bugle here with your needle coming out on the left-hand side. From here, it becomes repetitive then that we're adding a 15-0, the Montee, and then a 15. You're going to go from that top bugle there, right as we're going along kind of down the sides. And if you want to help you keep track, you can even put a pencil in there. But my thread's coming out on the left-hand side there of that first bugle. I'm going to go into the right-hand corner of the next bugle down. So I'm going from one corner to the other corner to secure my Montee in place. When you're coming out the corner, add a 15 and go through the other hole of the Montee. Coming out the Montee then, add another 15 and go through the original bugle that your thread was coming out of, that second set, and go through from the right-hand side and come out the original left, where we started. Give a nice tight pull, and then sew down the bugle on the left-hand side. To get to our next block here, we're going to sew through the bugle right underneath the Montee. We're going to be coming out now on the right hand side, so you can see it's alternating as you go. Coming out the right hand side, 15-0, bugle, 15-0, get added. Your thread is going to then go on that diagonal, go in the left hand side of that bugle below it, come out the right. Pulling that Montee then on top, grab a 15, sew through the second hole of the Montee, grab a 15, and sew through the original bugle from the left hand side over to the right. Once you have this same pattern going on, once you have this step down, it continues the whole way, adding in your little Montees. And after each time I add a Montee, I do kind of push the seed beads up, give a little pull to make sure that all the threads are kind of tucked in there and then you're not seeing a lot of thread. Then again, to move on to the next section and the next Montee, what you're going to be doing is you're going to come down the side here, go through that bugle bead, and then add on your next Montee till we are completely done adding Montees along our outer edge here. So I've added in my final Montee and I'm coming out of one of my bugle beads along the interior. And what I'm going to do is tighten this up. So you can see it's really flimsy, especially if you're doing one that's more than 5 wide. What we're going to do now is go down the edges or the outer bugles here, those 5 bugles on the outer edge, and we're going to add in a 15-0 between each. What that's going to do is tighten that up and make the Montees sit nicer, pull the thread a little bit tighter as well. If you can see, I just kind of moved the stop bead out of the way too while I was working with it. So I'm coming out the bugle. I'm going to go down one of the side bugles here and simply add a 15-0 between each of those 5 bugles that runs right along this side. So a 15-0 gets added in, and then I sew through the next bugle. Add the 15-0 in, sew through the next bugle. So you can see those 15-0s really just kind of pop in there on the sides. They tighten up the whole project, and we're going to be adding them not only to the one side but the other side as well. So I'm going in now, and I have the last bugle to add, or the last 15-0 to add in. Coming out. I have one more to add in because that's actually the stop bead. So if you want to, you can kind of pull the stop bead back a little bit and out of the way, so that way you don't get it mixed in with your project. So I have one more 15-0 to sew through, and I'm going to sew through the last side bugle. So now you'll see kind of that pointed little section there of those 5 15-0s that sit right along the bugles. To get to the other side, I'm going to go through one of the center bugles, and it'll start to get a little bit tight, but you'll make it through if you're using a size 12 needle. And now on the other side, same thing. Pick up a 15-0 and sew through the bugles on the side. So a 15 gets added between each of those 5 bugles, adding in 5 15s. So I'm coming around here to add the final one and sew through the bugle. I'm going to sew back through, because this is a bugle that my thread already went through multiple times. I'm going to sew back through the 15-0, the bugle that I put on first in the 15-0. From there, I need to get my thread ends to match, so they're coming out the same side, so I can tie them off together. So I'm going to go through one of the center bugles again to get from one side to the other side. If you find that some of the bugles have smaller holes than others, you can kind of just take your thread and needle around that center hole, or that outer hole rather, and reinforcing that as well. We'll go through that center bugle bead, coming out the other side. And again, all I need to do is get my ends to line up. So I just need to take this through the bugle on the side, and my thread ends will be coming out the same place. So I'm going to take that through there. The thread ends are coming out in the same place here. You're going to remove your stop bead, pulling it off a little bit, and tie those two thread ends together. I'm going to do that in the square knot form, right over left, and then left over right, tying those together. Once you have those nice square knots, you can take your thread zap or thread burner here, grab onto the ends of the thread, burn them down short but not completely off, because what we're going to do is we're going to use that then to kind of make a blunt end to make sure by flattening out the ends of each that the knots that we tied will not come apart. With the green thread too and that black AB, it really does kind of conceal and hide all of the thread that you see on the ends. So then you have the fun crystal spacers kind of created. And you can really play around with picking up the beads then and adding them in. You have your spacers. These are also great if you have Pandora style bracelet with a larger hole. You can build them specifically to go around, but it's a nice, quick, easy, almost beaded bead or that Montee spacer there to add in between these beads and to create a nice kind of bling and pop and one-of-a-kind design with it. You can also really change up the color and what you're making based on the beads that you're picking, the seed beads and all of that, and you can really kind of match and go to town on that item. I'm going to make a couple more to put in between some more of my lampwork beads, and then we'll get back together and kind of wrap it all up. Once you're done with the project, you can kind of string it however you want. Again, these slides would be great on Pandora style or Omega necklaces. You can make them to fit and to make them any size core that you want them to be. If you want them to be smaller, you can go down to 4 or possibly even 3 if you want them to be really tiny and more triangular shaped. But I like the look of the 5 between the lampwork beads. And again, these lampworks are kind of deceiving and hard to see. They look a little bit light blue under this light. And then when you're in different light, they look purple. So they're that fun kind of Alexandrite color of lampwork inside bubble beads. And they match really, really well with the crystals. Those SS12s too, if you do them in crystal or crystal AB, they'll pretty much match anything that you're trying to match. Again, if you need any of the materials to make these Montee bead slides, you can go back to the beginning of the video to the little drop-down menu that we have for you. If you don't see that drop-down menu, you can always go below the video to the description of the video to the little show more button and click on that to get links to purchase them online. I may keep going to and do a couple more, but I like rather the statement of those lampwork beads with the crystals kind of in between and blinging that up a little bit. They move really quickly. I did the extra 2 here in a matter of a couple minutes sitting on the couch and hanging out, and made them really quickly. So that's a fun thing as well. If you like these YouTube videos and you want to see more, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. That way you'll get regular updates when we do tutorials, show you different things, show you new things, as well as keep you informed in what's really going on with the beading community in general. Also, in addition to subscribing to this YouTube channel, you can visit us at PotomacBeads.com. Check out our site there and shop from me there. You can also visit, if you are lucky enough to have a Potomac Bead Company near you, one of our retail stores, as well as keep in touch with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all of those good places as well. And if you want to stay even more connected and kind of get a fun connection into the world of beading and jewelry making and wire working and all different kinds of jewelry art. You can check out our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. Ask to become a member there and we'll link you up, and it's a great forum, interactive, with different jewelry designers and makers and hobbyists alike that have great ideas, great suggestion, and are really just a great group that's looking out for everybody kind of making their own jewelry and loving the art. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching and have fun making these little Montee bead slides.